Welcome everyone to another episode of LPF Debrief, where Chris and I talk about comic books, TV shows, and movies. And on today's episode, as you guys can see in the title, we are going to be talking about episode 2 of The Last of Us on HBO Max. It is exclusively there. It's the only place you can watch it. So we're not sponsored. I'm just letting you know where you can find it because it's literally the only place you can watch it. And yeah, we're going to be talking about episode 2 today. I have Chris with me as always for these Last of Us talks.
Oh, I'm ready.
And yeah, this episode was, uh you're,
They're rolling with these punches, man. They're
you
not. They're
listen,
not playing around.
they are not, again, this was another episode. But this episode makes a lot of sense, right? Because this episode was done by
Neil
Neil
Druckmann.
Druckmann.
Yeah.
Yeah, who basically, if you guys don't know who that is, he's literally the creator of Last of Us, basically, because he did all the major writing for it and stuff like that. He also he directed this episode. So this episode 100% had the video game feel because this is legit what was coming from his mind, especially from a directorial standpoint. And before we get into our opinions about this is another thing that I wanted to harp on because we talked about it last week, where oh, you can't get these game producers and writers, they don't know how to direct. Yeah, psych. Like, again, stop with these stigmas, people. Like, stop trying to protect your Hollywood, writing rooms and your Hollywood, like, bro, these guys, if you can write a good story in a video game, comic book, TV show, book, I don't care. You're going to be a good writer or most likely a good director if you know, especially from coming from the person who knows what they're doing. I'm not saying that's the case for all times because people can throw George Lucas in your face. But so there is rebuttals for it. But again, let these guys get a chance. I'm happy HBO gave him a chance. I'm happy that he's such a major part in the storytelling. And yeah, episode 2 started off with us in Indonesia, and this is something that I thought we were going to get a lot of. And I'm happy we're getting it. And I love how they're doing it. I love, like, it seems like the way that this is going to be is every episode at the beginning, before we get to Ellie and Joel, we're going to get like a prequel essentially, which is what I thought we were going to do in the first like couple of episodes. But I'm actually liking the format more this way,
The pacing's
where
been
it's like,
good. Yeah.
yeah, I like the format more this way, right? Because the first episode we had the talk show, basically everything about how how a fungal infection could affect everything. And then in this episode, we are in Indonesia. This is 2 days before the major outbreak.
Which this is where it started too, right?
Yes,
Indonesia's where it
which
started.
is
Yeah.
where it starts. We see her, we see them basically talking about it. And how things started to go down, just how it was. And then we see the person on the floor on the table, fungal expressions. I mean, already shot in the head. When shout outs to the people who shot them in the head. Good job, because you already know where to aim to before it even thing. But we see a harsh reality in something like this happening, right? In that whole Indonesia scene where they basically are just like, yo, honestly, you got to bomb this shit.
Yeah.
Like,
The doctor was just like, I've been studying this my whole life, and I know
yeah,
that this does not end well. This is it. If you let this continue, it's the end of the world. That's it. I'd
yeah,
like, and she knew that even if she was a doctor or anything like that, like she's important, that she was a part of it. She's like, I have no authority here. Like I should be bombed like everybody else. I'm gonna go home with my family now, and
yeah, and it's a
savor
harsh
my last
reality,
moment.
right?
Yeah, it was crazy
Yeah,
to see that. I was like, whoa, because I know
yeah,
if
and
that happened here, they'd be like,
oh
hey man, this is it, but I'm out. You guys got a
yeah.
flight for me because I'm.
Well, I mean, the thing, and that's the thing though, because depending on where you are, that like the people's reactions are going to be different, right?
Oh, yeah,
Because
the
you
social
are going to
status.
have
Yep.
a very much, fend for yourself.
Yeah.
You got to kind of deal with this shit yourself. And I mean, even then, knowing that piece of information is what I think would be the hardest if you're in that position, right? Because you have to be able to be like, I know that this shit is fucked up. Like, you know what I mean? But also, like, how do I get out of this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's no real way. And like I said, that reality of it sitting in on her and the officer, of her just being like, look, like you said, I studied this my whole life. Like, if anyone knows that there's no curing of this, it's me. Like, you know what I mean? Because like, this is my life's work. So for them to start off like that, and again, this kind of added on to what episode one's was, where they did the basically, you know, if this, he said, if this were to happen, if it were to go into humans, this would be an issue. And we're seeing that now, why it's an issue, right? Because they originally, this couldn't live in their bodies. Now it is. Actually, if you guys watch the end of the episodes, they talked about what that string is called. There's a name for it. I'm forgetting it right now. It
starts with like a C or something like that.
But it's they have a name for it, and I thought it's really cool because that's something that you don't see like in the game, like not portrayed the way they are. But I think this is an awesome way of portraying it here, because visually it's, you know, even though it's really like will creep you out, it's really cool. Like,
yeah, shout out to HBO for making me hate moss. Now I'm sitting there outside looking at my moss on the tree or something, and I'm like,
just like no,
because when she picks it up, because whenever she picks it out of the throat, you know, I am very, you know, scary movie feel. I was like, as soon as she put her hand in the mouth, I was like, that's gone. I'm like waiting for it to chop down.
My first reaction was like, okay, are you sure you want to? My thing is though, like, at that point, she has no idea if that's dead, right? Like, you know it's dead because you see it got shot in the head, but like, she doesn't know.
Wait, does
like,
she cut the? Don't know. Does she cut the calf first and then go into the mouth, or the mouth
first?
Okay.
Yeah, she cuts the calf first. But even then, though, like, you know what I mean? You don't know the reaction. You don't know that these things, you know, die and come back until like the guy tells her that this happens. But like, still, it's so early in the staging, you have no idea, right? So shout out to her for even trying to check, because they would have been like, yo, this thing was alive and it's dead now. And I've been like, well, like, that would have been me. I'd have been like, let me get out of here, because first of all, that's never happened before, where someone just dies and then comes back to life. Why would I try to to test it out now? No, thank you. Yeah. No, thank you.
But it made my skin crawl, like just seeing that little bit, and I saw it move a little bit. I was like, bro,
and that's the thing though, right? That's what I think is the reason why it's portrayed so awesomely, because that little bit of movement makes you know it's a living thing.
Yeah, it's a living
thing, right?
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? It gives you that reminder, because we kind of like, obviously, you know, we know plants and stuff like that. It's some things that we subconsciously think about, right? We don't really think about, oh, plants as a living thing, like, until you're like, oh yeah, like they are alive. Like, so them showing it that way is really cool. And I, again, with that whole phrase, we're just basically saying, hey, look, this is it. Like, we need to blow this thing up. Like, I don't know what else to tell you, but that's the only thing that's going to work, because there's no vaccine that's going to work. There's no, you know, cure for this. That's it. Like, this is it. And it's also just a great segue, right, to where we're going to go, because obviously we're going to meet up with, you know, Ellie and Joel again. So, and Tess, to see where they're going. And of course, we start off with a great scene by just, you know, Bella Ramsey really taking the Ellie like approach and becoming. I feel like this episode really showed her being Ellie, right? Like, just her attitude, her slick mouth, the slick comments. Like, she was doing that in the first one, but you know, we just got to see a little bit more of it, and it really sat home with me. Just like her being like, you know, the whole sandwich when they're eating, and she's like, oh well, like,
is that, you know, chicken? She's like, yeah.
Like,
what's up?
I mean, the whole bathroom thing, the whole, like, you know what I mean? But even between those conversations, you have a really deep moment, right? Because you have Joel and Tess trying to figure out what's going on. Obviously, we know Joel is in 100% closed off mode, right? He is not trying to let anyone back into his heart, which is why he's very upfront and very like, no, this is not possible to Tess, because he doesn't want to believe. He doesn't have any hope, right? He lost his daughter. He lost Sarah. There's no hope in Joel. Joel is a broken man, and he doesn't want anything to fix him. Like, you know what I mean? He's too deep into that point where it's just like, I'm not even going to try to, like, you know, this is a job. We need to treat it like a job. I don't care if she's a person. We just need to get her in and out, get our battery, and that's it. Like, you know what I mean? But Tess you could start to see the wheels are ticking, right? Because she's basically like, hold on, like this might be possible, like something else could be more of this, right? And for them to, the thing that I did find weird though, and I even found this weird in the game when you think about it, they were just like, why are they transporting you? Like, you guys saw that she was infected and she hasn't turned. Why do you think she was being held captive? Like, I don't feel like there's, you know what I mean?
Makes
There's
sense to
just
me.
no,
I'd be like, oh,
like,
I
there's,
like meal. If I was them, and I saw, as soon as they, she's not infected, blah blah blah, the bite heals or whatever, I'd be like, oh, so we're transporting the cure, basically. Like they think you're
yeah,
gonna
like,
save
or
people.
something, yeah. Like, I don't know why they didn't put two and two together, especially
Nah.
those two characters, because they're pretty smart characters to now just be like, oh, she was like, what's the value in you? And I'm like, Tess, like,
You just saw her arm.
you saw her arm. She showed up as infected, but is not infected. I think you know what her value is.
And you know what? They kind of missed an opportunity there for Ellie to be a smartass again there. Because
Yeah.
I would have been like, I can control the zombies.
Yeah.
I'd be like, really?
Yeah,
No,
something,
like
yeah.
I'm the cure, man. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like, what do you think? What do you think I'm here for? Like, I got bit a week ago. You can see I haven't changed. Like, duh. But yeah, so just that whole scene and stuff, just them thinking about what's gonna happen next, right? Is a
Yep.
really cool moment. And like I said, Bella just really getting to hone in who Ellie is, being the smart addict, being like, just and then cursing up a storm just like Ellie did, even though she's 14, and you're just like, oh, what the hell? Like, she is cursing up a storm. But I love we finally go out to the city and
Which
we
was
kind of
fantastic.
mhm,
Wow,
mhm,
and and you see it in the characters too, or at least
yeah,
Ellie. How Ellie reacts is kind of like how the audience reacts. Is like
mhm,
she steps out. I see the city, the leaning
yeah,
skyscrapers and everything, or the overgrown stuff,
mhm,
which I love. I love looking at those. What is it called?
yeah,
Like urban pictures, I guess you could say.
yeah,
Is
mhm,
and the fact that she's like, wow, I had the
yeah.
same thing. I was just like, wow, this is nuts.
Especially for the gamers, right? Like
Yeah.
the people who've played it, we're seeing this world again, just in, and again, it goes to that whole, like, I don't want to keep beating this drum, but like, it goes to that, like, we're still going to be impressed by live action stuff if it's done right, even though we know this story. Because like this episode for me, I knew what was happening.
Hmm.
I knew exactly what was going to happen, but was I just as intense, like, as if I was playing it? Yes. I was sitting there. I was watching it with friends actually I mean, we were watching it together, and we were watching it together. You know what I mean? So,
I feel
so
okay.
you know what I'm talking
Oh
about.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we were watching it together and just doing our reactions and stuff. And I was watching it with people who haven't played the game. So like we're watching this, and then I'm just like, bro, y'all, you guys, like, I'm glad you guys are getting to experience this, but like even me, like not knowing knowing what's about to happen, my heart is still pumping. Like it's pumping crazy. I need to know, like, I'm ready. So all of that happening, I do like how they, made the world look, right? It looks like a beautiful world. It looks the world itself is very, you know, much what the game was. So I'm really happy with the way that that turned out. I also did like the little change that they did, which is a little bit different, and it this is the kind of changes that I like that makes sense for TV, right? The whole change where they did with the fungus and the thing that they're kind of connected, like, because in the game it's easier to know that because like they don't obviously put their hand on the ground or anything like that in the game, but anytime you make a noise, a horde comes out.
yeah,
So for them to do it this way, it makes it the theatrics for TV shows much better because it's like, yeah, that's kind of like that's cooler because we need a reason for those hordes to like start chasing them. Right.
yeah.
And
And
I
it
thought
was
that was a really cool.
if you watch, because it was the same thing. There's two moments in this that are not in the game that we'll get into as we get there. But at the end, I highly recommend watching the extra scenes Even though this time, like as soon as the credits rolled, they showed me the trailer for the next episode, and I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't want that, but okay.
Yeah.
Like
I always skip it because they always do that.
yeah, I didn't
HBO
know
does
they didn't
that.
do it in the first one, so it just went
Well,
in.
they
So I
do it
was
for
like,
Game of Thrones, so I just naturally
okay,
skip.
the Game of Thrones I
Yeah.
never did. I didn't know HBO did that for like the longest time,
Yeah.
and then I was just
Mhm.
like, oh shoot, I missed all this. But they explain how, like, hey, like there, it's so cool that they keep talking about the gamers too.
Mhm.
Um, they're like, we know in the game it was spores, but in real life, like that doesn't make sense. Spores are
Yeah.
everywhere and everything like that. We can't go into a real life situation and be like, oh, this is a spore zone, because we
Mhm.
know in real life it would just be everywhere. So the fact that they're like, they did their research on fungus and they're like, okay, this is what it does, and it's one ecosystem and it's all connected. And they are very big on harping on that. Like whenever Ellie like looks over and you see all of them there, and she can tell they're all moving together. Like when the shade comes in, you see them all like get low together and everything like that. So I think that's even scarier. The fact that you can step on like a root or anything, and then it just sends a signal. It could be like 20 miles away, and then like I got an hour, and then I have a horde on my back, or like not even an hour, but I know there's people out there, or those things are out there coming to me, and then I got to worry about whatever else is in this building that knows I'm here also. So that's nuts.
Yeah.
That was a good story beat too, because like I liked when they're climbing up the stairs, and she steps on the arm.
Yeah.
And Joel gives her that look, and you see the panic in her face. She's like, "I'm dead. That's it."
Yeah.
Like she's just like looking at him, and they give it a second. And they're like, "No, we're good. Okay, we'll keep going." So and they
And the other thing that I really like that they did is they're letting you know, and this is kind of like for the game. Also, they're letting you know that even though Ellie is thought to be immune, right? Like it doesn't mean that they can't just grab her and like literally just bite her to death.
Yeah.
Right. So like even if she might not turn, which is what it's they're implying, that doesn't mean, certain enemies, especially ones we'll meet later, can't lliterally just rip her apart.
Yeah, so Tess tells her, she's like, "You're not immune to being ripped apart," and I love that line.
So
I was like,
I'm glad that they did that. So I love when they finally get it. And then again, this is where that knowing about the game and knowing about what's about to happen, they go in and you're like, oh man, they go to the water and you're like, here we go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So, but again, it doesn't change any of your feels as far as like, for me personally, just speaking personally, even knowing that what we know, it didn't change the intensity of that scene for me. Like those scenes were just absolute, like leading up to everything when we get there is just really cool to me, because again, I like seeing it again. Right?
Yeah, I
and
think
even if I played it again, I would still have that same feeling, because that's the way it was when I played it originally.
Yeah, I think the problem with me is that it doesn't change feeling. You're right, but at the same time, whenever the moment's supposed to be scary, or like the first episode with Sarah, and it's supposed to be a sad moment, like I didn't feel those things because I was just excited to see like, oh wow, they really did it. They did it this way.
No.
Especially this scene. I don't know if you got the same feeling, but as soon as they get up to the top of the stairs and they go in and I see the museum layout, I automatically think in my head, I'm like, we're crouching there. I'm going to hug that corner.
No.
So, like this is the playing field.
Yeah.
And then the rubble falls down, and I was like, now we're locked into the playing field.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is where it happens.
Yeah.
So
of course, because we're
good.
reliving the game.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know what
So
I mean?
it's kind of weird that like I fight I don't really fight the feelings. It's just I get more excited than I'm like, oh man, like freaked out. I do get freaked out because they look fantastic. And one of the cool things that I got from I picked up from the end credits, the extras, was when they when they were talking about, well, I mean, we'll go ahead and talk about the clickers showing up, but when they made them, they were like, we wanted to make sure we did it right to where it was, and this is what I loved, and I wish everybody would do it. He's like, we wanted to make it to where the gamers are like, that's what it looks like, and then newcomers were like, what is that? And they hit perfectly with that.
Perfect medium, yeah. And the thing is, again, you have to, I always say this, and if you like, when I talk, like, you have to please both audiences,
Mhm.
right? And it's a really tough balance because some fans, you have to be able, there's a happy medium to all of this, right? There is a medium to where you can make it you can still please your already audience, meaning gamers, book readers, things like that. You can please them and you can please the new audience. But again, I'm just of the one that believing that you don't have to change the gaming side of it as much as they think they have to.
Yeah.
And this was a perfect case, right? The clickers were absolutely fantastic. Just the way that they looked, the way that they moved, the actors, whoever are in those bodies suits, and I love that they said that these were people who loved the game, who cared about the
Understood,
game,
yeah.
understood, because their movement is what makes them freaky. Besides the sound, beside like their movement, just the way that they were moving. If you turn on Last of Us right now, you would see an identical movement. The way that they move their elbows and their bodies and their sounds, their neck, like all of it. But then, and this is what I loved about it, is like it literally took me to, okay, I'm playing Last of Us. Like the scene instantly went to, I'm in video game mode. Like everyone shut up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, stop making noise. Like, don't do anything because I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're trying to get out of the scenario. And I love it because it's the same as when we first meet them in the game, like clickers, because you don't know. Like, you don't know about the shivs yet, which I think we'll get to later,
Mhm.
like, with the knives and stuff like that, because we're kind of foreshadowing it with Ellie's knife always popping out. But it was just really cool to like see them moving, to see that, like, and then Joel obviously having experience with them before, he's like, they can't see us, like, they can only hear us. So everyone just shut up, like just be quiet.
Yeah, I did get
And
mad at
then
Ellie when she's at the
yeah,
bottom of the steps and they were like, I didn't hear anything. And she's like,
yeah,
hear what? And they're looking at her like, shush.
yeah, like
She's like, what are you guys talking about? I was like, will
yeah.
you shut up? I was
But
like,
she doesn't know
yeah, I
though,
know
so
she
it's not
doesn't
her
know.
fault.
I
Like, you know what I
know.
mean?
She's
So
just a curious kid, which is
yeah,
great. That's why, I mean,
yeah.
that's why you have them and they
Hmm.
get you, you have that kid to get them into situations like that. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So so it was really good. Like they're getting into that situation, and you're just like, bro, and you're like the tense. Like my heart was beating that whole scene because I'm like, bro, they make one sound, it's over. Like, you know what I mean? Because for people who haven't played the game, the clickers in the game are, if you don't have a shiv, it's an instant kill. Like if they grab you, if they get close to you and they grab you, you saw what Joel was doing. That doesn't happen in the game. Like where like you don't get to just fight them like that. You're
Mm-mm.
dead if you don't have a knife. So I like how they added, like, kind of put that element in there too, though. Like he's a little struggling with it, but I mean the sound is just terrifying because every time you hear it, you know that you're getting into this thing where like these things can instantly kill you. But I love that they were, even though they didn't instantly kill Joel here, because obviously we wouldn't have a show if they did, but it still gives you that feeling, right? Like that feeling of like these are not anything you want to play around with. Like you want to like be as resourceful as possible. They couldn't in their scenario, but it was really cool to see them on TV moving like they did in the game, just having that overall feel of what the clickers are and just how everything felt in that air, like, in the moment, like it did in the game. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I love that even people who haven't played the game felt that same intensity, because like I said, with the people that I was watching it with, like they felt the same way, right? Like they're having that same kind of, oh my god, like my heart's racing, bro, I don't know what to expect. And it's cool to hear that from other people who are watching it for the first time.
Yeah.
So overall, was that whole scene, that whole scene was just a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and I like the smart plays that Joel had whenever he pushes over the
Mhm.
statue, gets
Yep.
away, makes a loud
Hmm.
noise. So I'm sure we're gonna see like the bottle trick
The
at some
bottle
point.
throws
Yeah.
and the and
So
the bricks.
yep, yep.
Yeah,
So
the bricks.
I
Hmm.
thought that was cool. But when they get out, I actually had to write it down. Was it? Oh no. Okay. Yes. Oh, my favorite line in this show or in this episode, right? That I liked about Ellie was when they get out. Tess sprains her ankle,
Yeah.
right? And she gets out. We as the gamers know, like, okay, well, we know what
Yeah.
happened, and we
Hmm.
continue. And when they're telling Ellie to be careful when she crosses the bridge, she's like,
Yeah.
"That was scary. This is wood." I
Yeah.
really I really enjoyed it.
Because I mean, how could you how could you be more terrified after
Yeah,
what
I'd
you
rather
just
fall off the
experienced?
top of a building than
Bro,
get
like,
eaten
you know
up.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I just watched this thing literally just like we've seen a person die from one of these.
Mhm.
Like we haven't seen it yet, but we saw like, the person basically get his like face was like ripped
Ripped
off
off all.
almost.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, like I'm not gonna be scared of heights anymore. I think your new fear, your fear of heights go away after that. Also, key to remember, guys, Ellie cannot swim. And she says that purposely. And again, people who've played, you know why, but that's definitely going to be something that comes back about the can't swim and stuff like that. So, and another thing I did like before we move on to like pretty much the ending and what happens there, I do like that she mentions when they're on the highway when she talks about being at the mall because, like I
Yes, I was
said,
gonna bring
yeah,
that up too. Yeah.
the mall scene. If you guys haven't played the DLC, because I know a lot of people who just played Last of Us and didn't play the DLC. If you play the DLC, you can actually know exactly what happens in that mall, and you'll see why she was kind of weird about the questions that were asked about her. But I won't spoil it because again, they might talk about it later. But there was pretty much the questions you could tell she was uncomfortable with, and there's a reason for it. Go play the DLC if you haven't. But
If
if you
not, there's
guys want to
also a
wait for
lot
the
of
show,
people after the first episode. There was a lot of people streaming the DLC
oh
that
yeah,
I saw. They were streaming the DLC, and then also people were playing.
it got people
Uh,
back into people wanting to play.
well, PlayStation did the smart thing, right? They said,
Mhm.
"Here's a free trial, 2 hour
Yep.
trial," and what they planned it out was, "Here's the 2 hours. This was the first episode, so play through it." And I was
Yeah.
like, "That's really cool. I
Mhm.
I really enjoyed that they did
Well,
that."
you got to market it that way, and
Exactly,
that's
it's perfect. It is perfect.
you can make it. It will, and this is why the remake has came out.
Mhm.
Everyone, like a lot of people are like, oh, my biggest issue with the remake is not that it came out. My
It's the
biggest
full
issue is the
price.
price.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean. But this is why they did it though. So people who are like, oh, Last of Us is out, I want to play it. Oh, I want to go play it. So they want you to play a well polished version. Because remember, Last of Us came out in 2013. Like that's 10 years ago at this point.
Mhm.
Like, you know what I mean? So even though they did give like a brief remaster, but whatever. After that,
It's gotten remastered twice.
yeah,
Let's remember
twice,
that for
yeah.
the PS4,
That's what I'm saying.
and then it
Yeah.
got remastered.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is why I was upset about the whole thing being
Yeah,
$70.
yeah.
Like, but anyway, we'll talk about that tomorrow maybe. But yeah. So besides that, we get to test the ankle sprain. Like Chris said, we pretty much know what that means, and I'm pretty sure that if you haven't played it, you know what that means. Like, you know what I mean? You kind of got a notion at that
Yeah,
point
yeah.
that something was fishy and something was going to happen. But basically, we get to the scene where they are at the rendezvous point where they're supposed to be dropping off Ellie, and then we see the Fireflies and everyone over there kind of just was in a terrible fight, and everyone's just dead because someone turned, started fighting everyone, and obviously that stuff happens. And then we see the scene where, you know, they're trying to talk about it. Tess is like hyperventilating, basically just upset because she's gained this hope again, right? She has this hope again now that she sees Ellie and what kind of person Ellie is, and just being able to, not have this thing, but also we are going to find out later eventually why she's like, okay, now I really believe you. You know what I mean? After Joel shoots the person, she realizes like, she was bit, and then she's like, surprise kind of thing. I think she says that in the game,
I
right?
don't.
Because I don't remember that scene,
I don't
but
think so because I think she just tells them I was bit. Like I'm not gonna
yeah,
make it go. But at the
yeah,
same time, this is what I was talking about. This is not in the game. Instead of the infected coming after them, it's Fedra. So Fedra gets
yeah,
into the building,
hmm
and Tess distracts them, and
yeah,
that's where she ends up getting killed by Fedra agents,
yeah,
or Fedra army.
hmm
I think personally, say Fireflies were still alive in there. I think she would have hid the bite until I think she was holding out hope. Like if I get her here,
yeah,
then they could probably help me out, like save me
yeah,
or something. So
hmm
whenever she saw that, she's like, "Nah, this is the end of the road for me." So
yeah,
I gotta figure this out. Which also brought to my second my skin crawled 3 times in this one. So the
Oh, okay,
beginning,
yeah.
this is the second one when he shoots the head, right?
Mhm.
And you see the fungus go into the
Yeah,
fingernail. I was like, I hate
yeah.
that. I hate that visual
Mm,
so much,
mhm.
man.
I like that one. That
Ugh.
one's good. You know me, my thing is the eyes. You start messing with eyes. I ain't here for that. Those are the only thing that make me cringe.
Ugh, I'm sure we'll get
But
that at
yeah,
some point. But yeah,
I hope not.
it's um that whole setup was different, and I thought
Yeah.
all the way leading up, I thought it was going to be Fedra agents until he
Mhm.
rolled over the Fireflies and said like one got bit
Yeah.
and they
I
went nuts.
honestly didn't think I knew it wasn't gonna be Fedra once we saw that scene where all of the infected were on the ground, because I was like, you don't just show us 100
Oh, that
infected
yeah, I
and
get you.
not, like, and not do something with them. So just, kind of like foreshadowing and things like that when they were just like, oh, they can communicate this and that. And I was like, I feel like that they're going to run into those. I didn't know they were going to do it for that particular scene, but I was just like, yeah, something's going to happen here. So it was really cool though, the way they did it. I actually liked it a lot.
Yeah, me
Just
too.
the whole like showing how dangerous it can be to you can't just kill them. Like, you got to be careful. Like you got to be more strategic about the placement, which is kind of like the game, right? Like you can't just be out there like running around killing stuff because your resources are really low. And like in the game, if you kill people in the wrong area, if you kill infected in the wrong area, a bunch of them might pop out. So I like that they're kind of putting that in, but putting it in a real world situation. I thought it was just a great way to do it. And then we see Tess, know that she's infected, and then she kind of lets Joel know, and then motivates Joel to be like, "Listen, you need to take her, and like this is our second chance. Like we've done some shitty shit. Like you know what I mean. Like let's make sure this can be our redemption. And Joel is still not thinking that way, but Tess has already thought that way because she's bit. She can see the way that her body is already changing. Ellie, who got bit again during the what you call it,
Yeah, the
during
fight.
the fight, is not like has no problem. So that just reassured her, like, yo, this is real, and like we need to treat it like it is. And she is able to motivate Joel into doing that. And then this was my cringe moment when the
This is
infected
number
walk
3.
in,
Yep.
because like I'm in here like, okay, like she's not changed yet, but obviously they already know it's running through her body,
So it's
like the
just a
infected.
connection,
So
yeah.
yeah, so that's cool because like what I mean, they don't treat Ellie like that, right? So I think it's kind of a cool way of showing this thing where it's like, look, this is how they're going to react to people who haven't changed yet. We're kind of foreshadowing it for future things because now you can't use like you can't use like basically if they're not turned yet, what I mean, they won't get attacked. And
Mhm.
now we know that, right? So I thought that was cool, and it just shows again how unique Ellie is because she doesn't like that she's in kind of infected, but she's not, but yeah, whatever. But then, that infected comes up and then the whole spore thing happens in the mouth, and like she's really trying to get her lighter working. And I listen, I'm one to believe you need to check your lighter before you decide you're going to start doing stuff with your lighter. Like, you know what I mean? But whatever. She does her lighter thing. She blows up the whole thing. Um, it was beautiful. The way it looked was beautiful. And you kind of are now in the next section of the game, right? Like that's pretty much
Yeah,
where
this is where
the
Joel
game,
and
yeah,
Ellie's
like
relationship start. Like
yeah.
everything
And you
happens from here on out.
and
Yeah.
and I'm glad you brought up their relationship when you could tell again, we got a little bit of nugget again, right? When she's like, man, but you can't deny that view. And like Joel kind of like he doesn't smile, but you knew he had like a little heartfelt moment there.
Hmm.
So it's nice that we're slowly building this relationship to what we know it you can become for the people who've played. It's just nice to see the foreshadowing of all of this. And like I said, it's still great, even though knowing what was going to happen. So
Yeah.
overall, go ahead.
I was gonna say with the lighter, it was like a
Yeah.
Easter egg. I followed Troy
Hmm.
Baker, which is the voice of Joel in the game.
Well,
Um, I didn't know it was Joel's lighter, so it was a nice Easter
hmm.
egg. And I saw Neil Drunkman commented, and they said he said that props came to him and said, "Do you want anything specific with the lighter at all?" Like asking him,
Yeah.
visually. And he's like, and I had to I had to tell him to do this. So I was like, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah,
So
I love what they're doing with
yeah.
it. Another 10 out of 10 episode for me. I just can't. I look forward to this every Sunday. Like, you know what I mean? Just watching it. And again, this is a story I know and I've played multiple times, and I don't care. I just want to keep watching it. Even, as I was watching it, I was just like, I just want more. I just want more. But I'm okay with it coming out little by little, so we can actually have this time to discuss it and stuff like that. But before we wrap it up, Chris, what was your favorite part?
I gotta say, this is. I mean, we said it the first episode of this.
It's gonna be
This,
like this the whole time.
dude, this is the hardest it's ever been to pick out something. Everything is so good. So that's why I gave you my favorite line instead. My favorite line
Yeah.
is the walking apart. If I had to pick favorite moment, I guess it's them sneaking around in the museum.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
I was gonna say the clicker scene.
Yeah, because it threw back to when I first played the game, and I was like, oh crap. And how whenever you were talking about how they move and everything, they even had the small like burst of running, like where it's like they run a little bit and then they stumble and then they start walking and then they run it. Yeah, and they like
perfect.
shake. Yeah, it is really
they
perfect.
stand still. They just like and that was my favorite part of the whole episode. I mean, just the accuracy of the clickers is what my favorite part was. And again, not something that we shouldn't expect, because obviously, the legit writer of the game is directing it. But I mean, just to see the actors portray that role in their movement, you know that you can't just watch, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell they didn't just go, oh, I'm gonna watch this for a few hours. I had that feeling that these were people who knew what the game was. They knew how it affected them, and just knowing that clickers affect us all the same way and that we all get freaked out by that sound made me happy. Like, because I know that I'm not the only one who's scared. As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh no. I was just like, no, I don't want this. But overall, again, awesome episode. I can't wait till next Sunday for the next one. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for us. Guys, will be dropping, I guess, the same day as we do our show. So if you watch this and then come watch our show, come interact with us. Let us know what you guys thought of the episode. We would love to hear your guys' comments. If you liked it, if you hated it, we want to hear all of that stuff. We want to know why you hated it, if you hated it, and tell us. If you
hated it, especially, I did see some hate online.
Mm-hmm.
The people that hated the game. I know, but they hated the game. So it's like, whatever, man.
My thing is, just don't watch it. You know what I mean? Don't comment on it. Okay. Just be like, I'm not a fan of it. Don't rain on people's parade. Like, I don't like when people, I don't mind obviously expressing your opinion, because we do, that's literally what we do. But like, I don't like when you go into people who are having a good time on expressing their thoughts and are just like, I hated it. And then you don't give no real reason on why you hated it. Like, what didn't you like about it besides the fact that you wanted to be opposite of everyone else? If you don't like it, that's fine. Just tell me. I want to know why you don't like it.
And also, you're not cool, man. You're not cool for telling me. Like, I'm just gonna find you annoying. I'm just gonna find you annoying. I'll be like, okay, you don't like it.
But you're also,
and then if you go into
social.
exactly.
So don't if you want to be that guy, go ahead. Just don't do it on people having fun, and just state your opinion, say why you didn't like it, and then don't watch it again. Don't go watch episode 3 knowing you didn't like episode 1 and 2. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't get it. So like, or if you're not opening to trying to like it, so it is whatever. But again, we'll have another episode for you guys. Again, if you guys wanted to be a part and jump in, let us know. We'll love to have you guys. Jump in on these. We would love to hear other people's opinions about the show too. But if not, drop it in the comments so we can, read it out loud, maybe at the beginning of the episodes if you guys put them in there. So that's something we always wanted to do. So please let us know. But that is going to be it for me and Chris. Until next week, Fire Team out.